Process of remote sensing. We have different processes of remote sensing based on the types of remote sensing. Remote sensing can be classified from different points of view, and accordingly their processes will also be different. However, the most widely used remote sensing process is the passive optical remote sensing. Now, what does it mean by passive, or what does it mean by optical? We don't know at this point of discussion. We shall discuss these issues with a greater detail, but for the time being, passive means when we are using the natural source of energy. Remote sensing can also be performed based on the artificial energy, but currently we are discussing the passive remote sensing, that is the natural source of energy. And as we have discussed earlier, that the natural source of energy is the sun. Now, optical, what does it mean by optical? Optical means it is basically the optical region of the electromagnetic spectrum. In different regions of the electromagnetic spectrum, we need to use different types of instruments for remote sensing. In this slide, we shall discuss initially the optical remote sensing. So, passive optical remote sensing. Now, passive optical remote sensing can be performed from the satellite platform as well as from the aerial platform. In this slide, we shall now discuss the satellite platform, and in the next slide we shall discuss the passive optical remote sensing from the aerial platform. Other remote sensing processes will also be discussed eventually. Now, in case of remote sensing, we need a source of energy, as we have discussed earlier, that the information will be transferred or will be accomplished by the use of electromagnetic energy or electromagnetic radiation. Now, we need a source of energy, and the natural source of energy is the sun. In this slide, as you can see, we have the earth over here, and then we have the earth's atmosphere, and then we have the vacuum or space. Now, in the first stage of remote sensing process, the source of energy radiates the energy. So, there is the first step, and it is radiation by the energy source. And after the radiation, this energy will pass through the vacuum, and when the energy passes through the vacuum, then no interactions take place or no modification of the energy will take place. Then this energy will heat the Earth's atmosphere, and the energy will propagate through the Earth's atmosphere. Now, when the energy propagates through the Earth's atmosphere, different types of interactions take place. Then the energy heats the Earth's surface, then also different types of interactions take place. We shall discuss these interactions later. So, in the third step, interaction with the target. Now, after the interactions, some amount of energy will be reflected back. So, this reflected energy will again pass through the Earth's atmosphere, and again different interactions will take place within the Earth's atmosphere, and finally the energy will be recorded by the sensor. So, this stage is the recording of energy by the sensor. Now, in case of satellite remote sensing, a satellite remains in its orbit for 10 to 12 years lifespan, and they do not come back on the earth's surface. Then the question is how to get this recorded data. So there must be some mechanism to transfer this data electronically, and also there must be some mechanism on the earth's surface to receive this data. Therefore the next step is basically the transmission, reception and processing. The satellite will transmit this recorded information, the ground station will receive this recorded information, and now see this this received information are basically electronic signals, they are not images. Therefore they are necessary to be processed to convert into interpretable image. And also it may have, I mean, these images generally have several flaws or deficiencies, and these flaws or deficiencies are necessary to be corrected, or these images may have several systematic errors. These systematic errors are necessary to be reduced or removed, and these are called processing. Now after the processing we get the interpretable image, and these images are interpreted and analyzed to extract the information, and then this extracted information will be used in different application areas. So the first is in case of passive optical remote sensing process, the first step is the radiation by the energy source, then interaction of energy with the Earth's atmosphere, then interaction of energy with the target or the Earth's surface, then again the interaction of energy with the Earth's atmosphere, then recording of energy by the sensor, then transmission, reception and processing, and then interpretation and analysis, and finally applications. Next is passive optical remote sensing process from aerial platform. In case of aerial platform also the process is more or less similar. First, radiation by the energy source, then the energy will pass through the vacuum and no interaction will take place. Then the energy will pass through the Earth's atmosphere and different types of interactions will take place. Then the energy will hit the target and different interactions will take place at the Earth's surface. Then the reflected some amount of the energy will be reflected back after the interaction over the Earth's surface. Then this reflected energy will go towards the sensor, and while going towards the sensor then also several interactions will take place in the Earth's atmosphere, and finally the energy will be recorded. So all these steps are exactly identical to the remote sensing from satellite platform. But in case of aerial platform, since the aeroplane comes back on the Earth's surface, we do not need transmission and reception. We can extract the recorded data physically. Whether it has been recorded on the digital media or on the photographic media, it does not matter. The data can be extracted physically, and then this data is necessary to be processed, as I have discussed earlier. So although the transmission and processing is not required, but transmission and reception is not required, but processing is definitely required. Now after the processing we get the interpretable images, and these images are interpreted and analyzed based on different applications, and then the extracted information will be used in different applications. So this was the discussion of passive optical remote sensing process from satellite platform and also from the aerial platform. Now, other than the passive optical remote sensing, we also have different types of remote sensing like thermal remote sensing. We also have passive microwave remote sensing. We also have active microwave remote sensing. So, all these remote sensing techniques will be discussed eventually in this course, but as I told you that passive optical remote sensing is perhaps the most widely used remote sensing technique.